legends. The players that are remembered long after their playing days end, and indeed long after they too pass. The players that live on in mythology and reverence, that have influenced the game we see today. They are players who have set records, won championships, and captured our attention, etching their legacies into the foundations of this game. A legend is special, not simply because their talents set them apart, but because their stories transcend the individual. In fact, to me, that is what a legend is. A remarkable player who tells a story that enthralls us. So today, I'd like to talk about the legend of Dr. J. Julius Winfield Erving II, also known as Dr. J. If you know anything about him, you know that he is unequivocally the coolest basketball player of all time. If you don't, consider this your education. As an introduction, just check out this picture from Doc's days playing with the New York Nets in the late 70s in the ABA. Just on appearance alone, I don't think you can get much cooler. The afro, the gold, the goatee, even the red, white, and blue of the uniform just make this guy look like the quintessential basketball player. And in a way, that's exactly what he was. He spent the prime of his career in the ABA, a renegade basketball league full of wackos and nutjobs at every level, that sold themselves as the energetic, fast-paced foil to the NBA's slower, methodical style. To the people that really care about the sport, Doc remains a living legend, a guy who defined his era culturally and aesthetically, propelling the sport of basketball into the modern age. He wasn't supposed to be. Julius Erving was a lightly recruited forward out of high school and ended up playing at the University of Massachusetts. He had great measurables, incredibly long arms, and hands that you had to see to believe. According to sources I could find, his hand was 9.5 inches long from the base of his palm to the tip of his middle finger, and when splayed out, measured 11.5 inches from the tip of his thumb to the tip of his pinky. Ironically, the year before his first varsity season, college basketball's ruling body had banned players from dunking the basketball. Erving made do and focused his game in other ways, perfecting sweeping layups and finger rolls while finding a knack for rebounding, often skying high above the heads of others and grabbing the ball out of the air with a single hand. Julius experienced remarkable success in his first varsity season, averaging over 20 points and over 20 rebounds for the entire season. Still, on an obscure basketball program in a nearly unheard of conference, his imagination had never once wandered toward professional basketball. In the summer before his junior year of college, Julius found himself back home in New York City, spending his days tearing across the city's renowned street courts. There, on the most famous street court in the mecca of the basketball world, the Rucker Park in Harlem, Julius Erving made a name for himself. And the name was Dr. J. While Erving had never been allowed to dunk in college, here players were only limited by their creativity and daring. Totally unleashed from the restrictions of collegiate hoops, Julius would submit dunks, rebounds, blocks, and layups that started drawing crowds from all over the city. As it was happening, crowds and MCs searched for a fitting nickname. They tried things like the Hawk and the Pearl after Connie Hawkins and Earl Monroe. They tried Black Jesus, Moses, and so on. But none of them really stuck. In his childhood, though, Julius had nicknamed one of his friends who had a penchant for long-winded arguments the Professor. Tickled by this, the friend declared that if he were the professor, then Julius should be the doctor, so as to form a complete duo. So as the search for Erving's nickname continued, he finally declared himself that if he were to be called anything, he should be called the Doctor. The Doctor became Dr. Julius, and Dr. Julius became Dr. J. Before long, the city's pro ranks, real bona fide NBA players, started to show up to test the mettle of this Dr. J. Nobody could stop the Doctor. For the first time in his life, Julius Erving entertained the idea that he just might have what it takes to break into the professional ranks of basketball. After another 2020 season, Dr. J did just that. He took his chance and joined the ABA. After that junior year, a 21-year-old Julius Erving accepted a 4-year contract to join the Virginia Squires. Again though, this was not seen as a major steal or a poaching job. Most people had still never heard of Julius Erving, and even if they had, it wasn't like he was any kind of real star. In fact, the Squires owner barely knew anything about Doc when he signed him. But as he walked away from their first meeting, he remarked to somebody nearby, "Hey, did you see the meat hooks on that guy?" Julius Erving debuted as a professional basketball player for the Virginia Squires in the 1971-1972 season. In that first season, he proved that he did belong as a professional, making the All-Star team and being named to the second team All-ABA. That first season was good enough that it ignited one of the crazier contract disputes in basketball history, which included a crooked agent and 3 different teams in 2 different leagues. I highly recommend you look it up. It is bonkers. You know what else is bonkers? That's right, baby. The sponsor of today's video, Factor. Factor is a meal delivery subscription service that ships pre-prepped meals right to your door. Your meal is delivered fresh, never frozen, which can be heated in the oven or microwaved in minutes. Factor meals are created by scratch with nutritious ingredients, with registered dietitians working hand in hand with the kitchen to make sure that you're not eating some TV dinner. You're getting a home-cooked meal every time. Fitness starts with food, and Factor makes it possible for you to achieve your daily goals through nutritious, purposeful eating. Factor offers keto, calorie smart, chef's choice, and vegan plus veggie options, which include seafood, meat, and plant-based meals. One of the challenges I've found in my daily life, as someone in his mid-20s who works from home, is finding the time, energy, and foods to cook on a regular basis. Rather than resorting to takeout or fast food, Factor solves that problem perfectly. I get nutritious, tasty meals delivered right to my door. To start with Factor, head to go.factor75.com/Clayton60 and use code Clayton60 to get 60% off your first Factor box. That's go.factor75.com/Clayton60 and use code Clayton60 to get 60% off your first Factor box. He returned to the Squires for the 73 season and enjoyed a breakout year, leading the league in scoring, making first team All-ABA, and again being named an All-Star. He had quickly become the young face of the ABA, the most entertaining, energizing player in a sport that was looking for exactly that. So of course, the Squires sold his contract to the New York Nets for cash. Because, you know, the ABA was insane. Which brings us to the good stuff, the peak of Dr. J's powers. Doc spent his apex years with the Nets, winning the ABA League MVP award in 1974, 75, and 76. Those years saw his fame and talent pass beyond superstar status and into legend. He had maintained his rebounding prowess, developed into an above-average passer for his position, and delighted at using his physical talents to strip opponents and block shots. But the lasting effect of Julius Erving's prime was the weaponization of the slam dunk. Perhaps no player is more synonymous with the dunk than Julius Erving. In the 60s, Elgin Baylor ignited a spark, taking something that had previously been reserved for centers as a show of brute force and power, and had infused it with a level of excitement. Doc took that spark and created an inferno. When Doc attacked the basket, he became a wizard, an innovator, doing things that no one had thought possible. He injected style, creativity, artistry, and individuality with his acrobatics. Exactly what the ABA and the sport of basketball as a whole needed. I can't emphasize the point enough. The dunk is to basketball what the home run is to baseball because of Dr. J. There were players who dunked before him, and there have been players who dunked after. But what is still perhaps the most exciting moment of a basketball game, the moment when a player is streaking down the court, loads his power into his lead foot, picks up his dribble, and skies towards the rim, was the signature move of the Doctor. And to watch him do it with those mitts, the way he picks up the ball like it's nothing, it looked like he was made to do it. He was unarguably the most exciting basketball player in any league. And yet his legend propagated in a way that was almost totally unique to him. The ABA did not have a national TV deal, so it spread through word of mouth and written accounts. Imagine that. An athlete that defied imagination, that left every spectator, reporter, and opponent speechless with his ability, but who the vast majority of fans could not see. His feats became mythical, similar to someone like Andre the Giant. His reputation became almost folklore, making no story seem too outlandish. He jumped 12 feet in the air, he took off from half court, he could have dunked on a 20-foot rim. Of course, the stories were hyperbole, but they only served to further prop him up as this practically alien athlete. Dr. J became a legend before some people even knew what he looked like. Like he was some powerful storm advancing toward land. One with a name and a face and a power that you know is out there, but that you just have no way of seeing yet. His first 2 seasons with the Nets were nothing short of incredible. They'd won the championship in '74, Doc had won back-to-back MVP awards and collected every award the ABA had to offer. And all of a sudden, the ABA had a sense of legitimacy. Few games were sellouts, even for the Nets. But the ABA was the place where the Doctor played. While Kareem was still unquestionably the best player in the world, Julius Erving was the essential basketball player. While Kareem was utilizing the skyhook, a mechanical, repetitive, boring move that still stands as the most awesome weapon in basketball history, Dr. J was soaring, employing the skills of improvisation, unpredictability, and excitement, moving in ways that you can't predict or even recognize, let alone get in front of. If he wasn't already, by this point he was the ABA's meal ticket. The league's commissioner, Dave DeBusschere, said that while many players might get called the franchise, Dr. J was the league. And if his pure skill and intensity had not already made him the most valuable attraction in basketball, it cannot go overlooked that Julius Erving goes down as one of the classiest athletes in any sport ever. Throughout his career, he was known to wait in the locker room, giving interviews and answering questions until every last fan had an autograph, every notepad was filled, every tape recorder run empty. He was articulate, intelligent, gracious, patient, and humble to an astonishing degree, as reported by nearly every human being who he has ever come into contact with. Bill Daniels, the owner of the Utah Stars, a rival ABA team, even wrote Erving an unadulterated fan letter, gushing in adoration. When the 1975-76 season started, the NBA and the ABA were on a collision course for a merger. To say that the Doctor was the only reason for the merger is an overstatement. The Oscar Robertson versus NBA antitrust lawsuit had been settled, and the ABA had been successful in recruiting many great talents, including players like David Thompson, Artis Gilmore, George Gerving, and Moses Malone. The fast-paced style of the Renegade League and its innovations like the three-point shot were similarly valuable commodities. But make no mistake, the blue chip in the merger was Dr. J. More than anything, the NBA needed him. The New York Times wrote that the NBA without the Doctor was like boxing without Ali. As the paperwork was drafted and the lawyers began organizing such a merger, the ABA embarked on what would be its final season. Doc continued to do Doc stuff, leading the league in scoring, winning his 3rd consecutive MVP, made first team All-Defense, first team All-ABA, was an All-Star, and had one of his many iconic moments when he measured his steps and took off from the free throw line in January's dunk contest. Usual Doc stuff. And remember, there were only 7 teams that played the full season, so take these stats with a grain of salt, but he finished in the league's top 10 in points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, steals per game, blocks per game, free throw percentage, free throws made, 3-point percentage, and 3-pointers made. After a 7-game grind against the San Antonio Spurs in the playoffs, the Nets reached the ABA Finals against the Denver Nuggets. There, against a Nuggets team that featured 3 future Hall of Famers in David Thompson, Dan Issel, and Bobby Jones, coached by future Hall of Fame Larry Brown, Julius Erving submitted his magnum opus. Jones was the man tasked with guarding Erving for the series, and was probably the most qualified man in the basketball world for the job. In the NBA, he would go on to make 8 straight defensive first teams, and earns the nickname the Secretary of Defense. Doc embarrassed him. In Game 1, Doc scored 45 points on 68% shooting, ripped down 12 rebounds, scored 18 of the Nets' last 22 points, and hit the game-winning shot at the buzzer. He followed it up with 48 points, 14 rebounds, and 8 assists in a Game 2 loss. 25 of his points came in the fourth quarter. Falling into foul trouble in Game 3, Doc put up 31 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists in a 6-point win. Game 4, 34 points, 15 rebounds, and 6 assists, leading to a 9-point win and a 3-1 series lead. The resilient Nuggets refused to roll over in Game 5, eking out a win despite Doc's 37 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists. And in Game 6, Dr. J left it all out there. 31 points, 19 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 steals, and 4 blocks in a 6-point victory. The last ABA game ever played, and one that ensured that Dr. J and the New York Nets remain forever the defending ABA champions. Look at these numbers. This is LeBron James stuff. All against a stacked Nuggets team and the best defender of his generation. Dr. J's 1976 ABA Finals performance remains one of the best championship efforts ever given by a basketball player. He was not, as some might be inclined to believe, just a trendsetter, just an entertainer. He was a supreme talent, a competitor, and a winner. When the two leagues merged, 4 ABA teams were absorbed into the NBA. The Denver Nuggets, the San Antonio Spurs, the Indiana Pacers, and the New York Nets. The Nets, already broke from paying their way into the league, had to sell Erving's contract to pay the Knicks for encroaching on their territory. They sold his contract to the Philadelphia 76ers, where he would play every one of his 11 NBA seasons. In those 11 seasons, there are 2 truths to be found. One, that he never quite reached the same heights as he did in the ABA. And 2, that for those 11 years, there were few players in the world that you would have rather had than Dr. J. His first few years with the Sixers were divisive. They were loaded with guys like George McGinnis, Doug Collins, Daryl Dawkins, and Lloyd B. Free. But they lacked an identity and cohesion. As talented as they were plagued by shoot first, me first egos. Doc, a team guy despite his abilities, made the conscious decision to tone down his aggressiveness and try to fit into a team concept. He still had his moments when he would press on the accelerator, winning the 77 All-Star MVP and submitting a pantheonic dunk over Bill Walton in the 77 finals. But his teammates never seemed to reciprocate that selflessness. Maybe Doc's biggest career disappointment came in the 77 finals, where the heavily favored Sixers fell to Walton's upstart Trailblazers. Maybe you can criticize him for not being aggressive enough, for being too passive and not being the type of guy to get on someone's ass and establish order through authority. Doc practically admitted to those things during those years. But the only reason any of that was a problem was because this was never really a Dr. J team. That would change in 1980, the same year he encountered 2 players that would become the toughest challenges of his career: Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. The 1980 Sixers played a marvelous style of basketball, thanks to players like Henry Bibby, Maurice Cheeks, Lionel Hollins, and Doc's old matchup, Bobby Jones. They finished 1 game shy of 60 wins, the franchise's best mark in over a decade, and strode through the Eastern Conference, beating rookie Larry Bird's Celtics 4-1 in the Eastern Finals. In the NBA Finals, they faced the Los Angeles Lakers of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and rookie Magic Johnson. The series would see 2 iconic moments. One in a 3-point Game 4 win, when Doc did something only he could do: a swooping behind-the-backboard layup that goes down as one of legend. And Magic's Herculean effort in Game 6. After the teams traded victories through the first 4 games, Kareem won Game 5 for the Lakers with a monstrous 40-point, 15-rebound performance. He was injured at the end of the game, though, and was forced to miss Game 6. We all know the rest. As a 20-year-old rookie, Magic Johnson jumped the ball at center, scored 42 points, grabbed 15 rebounds, dished out 7 assists, and clinched the championship for the Lakers with one of the great playoff performances ever. An empty-handed Doc yet again. But he wasn't the type of player to stop. In '81, he enjoyed his finest individual season, captaining the Sixers to 62 wins, tied for the most in the league, made first-team All-NBA, and won the NBA's Most Valuable Player award, 5 years and a league removed from his ABA prime. But of course, because these things are rarely straightforward and easy, the Sixers would choke away a finals trip later that postseason, blowing a 3-1 lead to the Celtics in the Eastern Finals. In '82, the Sixers won 58 games. Doc was again named to the NBA's first team, and again met Larry Bird's Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, where again, the Sixers would open up a 3-1 series lead, which they would again let slip away, resulting in a winner-take-all Game 7 against the defending champion Celtics on the parquet floor. But this time, the Sixers had a secret weapon, a second-year guard named Andrew Toney, who earned himself the nickname the Boston Strangler. He would score a game-high 34 points, and with Doc's stat-stuffing box score of 29 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks, the Sixers arrived at their third finals in 6 years. They would face the Lakers again, and would again fall, but their newfound resolve made the Sixers believe that they were just a piece away. That summer, they acquired that piece. The most physically imposing center in the league, Moses Malone. He was everything they'd needed. The video isn't about him, so I can't get too much into him, but we'll hit the important stuff. He was the defending regular season MVP and had also won the award in 1979. He was a rebounding machine on the Mount Rushmore of boards with Wilt, Russell, and Rodman. He could score effectively, was unbelievably physical, could run the floor, get every offensive board, and was such a sure thing on the glass that the rest of the team could leak out and start streaking down the court with the assurance that he would be getting the ball and throwing it ahead. He also just so happened to routinely give Kareem as much trouble as he would ever face. The results were immediate. The '83 Sixers were incomparable. By March, their record stood at 49-7. There was talk of breaking the '72 Lakers' all-time wins record, and already a discussion about whether a championship would earn this team the mantle as the best team ever. By the end of the season, they'd cooled off slightly, finishing with a 65-17 record, still the best the NBA had seen in a decade. The Sixers played hungry. They played every game like it was a playoff game, and came out like savages. They'd jump on you in the first half, but were an even better second half team, and would usually pad their lead and walk to victory. Moses unlocked their fast break potential, while Doc provided the steady leadership and production that the team had long come to expect. And it's worth mentioning that Doc still had those Dr. J moments in him, exemplified by his All-Star MVP, and maybe his career's most famous dunk. The end of the season award list was a who's who of Sixers players. The NBA's first team included 2 Sixers, Doc and Moses, with Moses taking home his 3rd career MVP award. Andrew Toney had flourished as an all-around player, shooting the lights out to the tune of 20 points a game. And Bobby Jones, the Secretary of Defense, was named the league's 6th Man of the Year. Plus, the league's defensive first team included 3 Sixers, point guard Mo Cheeks, Moses, and Jones. They were incredibly well-balanced, exceeded in every facet of the game, and had a fire and determination that no team could match. As the playoffs loomed, Moses was asked for a prediction. Malone, a soft-spoken giant with a Yogi Berra-like penchant for one-liners, was often quoted phonetically. So when he responded simply, 4-4-4, as in 3 straight playoff sweeps, the prediction was famously printed as faux, faux, faux. And you know what? He was damn near perfect. The first round matchup with the Knicks, a sweep. Their Eastern Conference matchup with the Bucks, okay, that took 5 games. The Bucks avoided a sweep with a 6-point win in Game 4. But in the finals, against none other than the Los Angeles Lakers, the team that had sent Julius Erving's team home without a ring, twice in the last 4 seasons? A 4-game sweep. Moses was a force, averaging 26 points and 18 rebounds a game, and out-rebounding Kareem Abdul-Jabbar 70-30 over the course of the series. For his effort, he was named the Finals MVP. It wasn't dramatic, but it must have been cathartic. For all of the Sixers, but especially for Julius Erving. He grew to stardom and spent his prime playing basketball at the highest level it can be played, in a renegade league without a television audience. He spent years competing at the highest levels possible, but on teams that did not fit him. And for one magical season, with a team for the ages, he finally captured the only award he did not possess, an NBA championship. And a championship won in one of the most dominant ways imaginable. Their one playoff loss is still the fewest ever by a championship team, and stood as a feat that would not be matched for 18 years. He might not have been the best player in the world. He might not have even been the best player on his team. But in his 12th professional season, at the age of 32, Julius Erving was the rock, the cultural touchstone, the captain of one of the greatest basketball teams ever assembled. Over the next few years, Erving's production slowly declined. His teams remained competitive, but neither he nor Moses would ever reach the same lofty heights in the new Bird and Magic era. So I think it's poetic that he won his ring in '83. Although the two had already won championships, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson would not face each other in the finals until 1984. Doc had given it all. He had done his best and gotten his, just in time for the next generation to begin in earnest. He announced his retirement before the 1986-87 season. It would be his 16th, a career span that was practically unheard of at the time. That season, he enjoyed a retirement tour that would become the benchmark for those to come after. In every road game, he was presented with gifts and mementos, asked to make short speeches, and showered with cheers and applause. Nobody, not even the Celtics, could help but to appreciate Dr. J for everything he'd done, including for keeping basketball alive at a time when it could have died. At the time of his retirement, including his ABA stats, Julius Erving was professional basketball's 3rd all-time scorer, was 2nd in steals and 10th in blocks. He was an all-star every single year of his career, 16 times total, the 4th most by any player. During his 11-year Philadelphia tenure, the only franchise that won more total games was the Lakers, by 12. He never missed the playoffs once in his career, not even in his twilight, and played in 71 or more regular season games in every season but his last. In total, he won 4 Most Valuable Player awards, 3 championships, and was a 9-time selection to the first team of his league, 4 in the ABA and 5 in the NBA. He ended his career with a win percentage of 67.3%. He won 67.3% of the games in which he played, a mark that is higher than that of Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Steph Curry, Wilt Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, Moses Malone, Oscar Robertson, Kevin Durant, and nearly every other player that is at a comparable level of all-time greatness, not named Magic, Bird, Russell, Shaq, Kareem, or Duncan. He wasn't just a great basketball player. He held in his enormous hands the essence of the game, what it was and what it should be. He exemplified to a generation what a basketball player was, paved the way for and won a championship in the sport's golden age. He led one of the greatest careers in basketball history, all while being one of the most revered, honored, respected athletes in the world. Pat Riley said after Doc retired, "There may have been some better people off the court, some mothers, the Pope, but there was only one, Dr. J, the player. He changed the way basketball is viewed, played, and appreciated. He left it better than he found it, one of the first real modern superstars. There has never been nor will there ever be another like him. A true living legend. He was more than a basketball player. He just was basketball.